Hello everyone, and welcome back to the new YouTube channel, Prince Dakota's Adventures by author E.H. Allen. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the new YouTube channel, Prince Dakota's Adventures. I'm now reading the second half of Chapter 5 in a new episode. Scene change. The dungeon, a short while earlier. Prince Dakota, Kalis, and several other mugs stood in formation, ready to let loose with a QSW. The last people were being led through the wormhole door just as Dakota gave the order to blast the thick steel door open. If the OZ soldiers on the other side wanted it open, who was he to disappoint? New paragraph. On my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark! Prince Dakota said as he and the other mugs activated their energy batons, which suddenly glowed brighter, and a shock wave shot out from the ends of the glowing batons. Boom! Kaboom! The sound of the shock wave reverberated throughout the room as it suddenly cut loose and blasted the thick door clean off its hinges. Pieces of stone from the wall went with the door as it took flight. The OZ soldiers were all caught off guard as the door flew through the air, smacked into several of them, and tossed them through the air. The handheld battering ram two of them had been holding made a racket as it simultaneously slammed into a wall with the door along with a few OZ. Whoa! Bam! New paragraph. New paragraph. Yeah! The two OZ holding the ram yelped as the door suddenly smacked into them and launched them through the air. Prince Dakota and the mugs wasted no time and immediately dashed out into the corridor before the OZ soldiers could come into the dungeon and launch an assault on them. A few OZ soldiers had small cuts on their faces from the flying pieces of sharp stone. New paragraph. I'm going to drink you dry, human! An OZ soldier warned as he jeered his sharp teeth at Prince Dakota, who had his extended energy baton ready to pounce. Oh, prick, please. You ain't drinking jack diddly squat, Prince Dakota said as he sharply smacked his glowing baton upside the head of the soldier threatening him. Whap! Dakota was so swift with his baton, the soldier never had time to raise his hands to defend his face. Kalis and the other mugs simultaneously put a beating on the several other OZ who thought they had the upper advantage. They obviously didn't expect a superpowered kid army to be waiting on them. The soldier swiftly brought both hands up to his face to massage his now bleeding nose. The OZ had the ability to rapidly heal, as long as they weren't starving for blood, but it still took a few moments, and he stumbled backwards, he stumbled towards a wall as another soldier attempted to attack Dakota. Little boy, you think you're so special. Another OZ soldier jeered as she attempted to swing her sharp fingernails at Prince Dakota's neck. But he and his mugs were ready to fight, and his superhuman reflexes were second to none. The OZ didn't realize what they were up against. Dakota swiftly ducked just as her arm swung past his head. And then with lightning speed, he momentarily released his baton, which floated in the air. He then reached up with both hands, grabbed her right arm, and flipped her head over heels before she could react. She yelped as she spun in the air and then thudded to the hard stone floor on her ass and back. He swiftly retrieved his baton and stood ready to beat more enemies. Hope you enjoyed your flight, misbehave, Prince Dakota said with a snicker as she grimaced from the hard hit. He swiftly used his baton to sweep the legs out from under another soldier, charging him, while she quickly recovered on the floor. They severely underestimated the speed at which mugs could fight. They weren't ordinary people being hunted for blood. Everyone, I'm going to take a quick break, then I'll continue. Welcome back. New paragraph. Oh! The soldier grunted as he slammed to the floor on his back and ass. Misbehave swiftly jumped up like she was going to be a threat to a superhuman from another universe. But unfortunately for her, that wouldn't be the case. A few other soldiers were standing with a fighting stance like the four of them could take on a skinny team, who had the supernatural ability to move planets and stars alike and harness the power of black holes. They wouldn't be a threat. New paragraph. Why don't you drop that magic stick of yours and fight us like a man? Misbehave sneered as she readied her sharp nails to try and slice his neck open again. She must have really wanted to hurt him, because she never even bothered to correct him from calling her Misbehave, even though that obviously wasn't her name. It was an insult Prince Dakota gave all bad women and girls trying to kill him. New paragraph. Listen here, woman. First of all, I'm just a young teen, albeit a powerful one. And second, I'm using the stick to kick your asses. You just gonna have to deal with it, wench, Prince Dakota said with supreme attitude as he readied his baton to pounce someone. Then so be it, Misbehave jeered as she and her three buddies started to advance again, when Prince Dakota simply thumped the end of his baton once on the floor. 4 ribbons of bluish-white energy, each a half-inch thick, lashed out from the baton and securely wrapped around each of them. All 4 soldiers immediately began to squirm and complain as they attempted to fight the powerful electromagnetic energy. The other soldiers were just as quickly apprehended before they could do a thing. New paragraph. Aha! What is this madness? One of the soldiers asked as he squirmed in the tight energy ropes that bound his arms tightly to his sides and 2 more around his upper thighs. They could stand, but they could not walk or move their arms to attack. Misbehave was in shock and never expected any enemy to attack this fast and hard. You damn vamps! I ain't got no time for your murderous shenanigans, Prince Dakota said with an attitude as his communication system dinged. He checked the ID and saw it was Bryce calling him. We are not vamps. We are OZ, one of the OZ jeered as he glared at Prince Dakota, who simply ignored him as one of the mugs spoke. Your Majesty, one of the human mugs with him said with a hint of a warning tone. Prince Dakota immediately realized what he had done and softened his features as he glanced at the mug in question. Oh, sorry, Beaver. I talk in improper grammar tongues when I get irritated at murderous beings. Thank you for your assistance of helping me curb my potty mouth, Prince Dakota said as he grinned at the mug. He had asked several mugs for their assistance in reminding him whenever he used curse words or ridiculous grammar. He had a habit of doing so when he got angry at bad guys. He had pledged to do better and set a good example for his soldiers. You're welcome, Your Majesty, Beaver said with a sweet smile at the superhuman boss, who was also his savior. But that was a story for another day. Everyone, I'm going to take a quick break, then I will continue. Welcome back. New paragraph. Your name is Beaver? Misbehave asked, with a stupefied look on her face as she stared at him. Prince Dakota shot her a look of daggers before he spoke. You listen here, lady. Don't you worry about what his name is. Now, all you vamps, shut the hell up while I converse with one of my mugs, Prince Dakota warned as he glared at her. She opened her mouth as though she was going to defy his order when he pointed his energy baton at her, and it briefly flared up with bright energy. She clamped her mouth shut as he answered the call. Go ahead, Bryce. What can I do for you? He asked after he tapped a touch-sensitive surface near his suit collar. It was pin-drop quiet as I listened to Bryce's voice coming from Dakota's collar speaker. He saw no reason to keep this conversation private, and in fact had done it on purpose to get a reaction out of the OZ near him. He had had a thought and wanted to see if he was right. The eyes of the OZ widened as they heard Bryce asked Lord Valerian how much time remained until the bombs went off. It was obvious to Dakota and his mugs that all the OZ planned to run if the castle was blown up. They had no idea their leader had just double-crossed them and planned to run to leave them all to be vaporized by a nuclear bomb. He had promised not to blow the bombs until they were all in the shelter. New paragraph. 4 minutes and 30 seconds, Lord Valerian's voice said calmly. Misbehave grumbled as she'd heard those words. Did you hear that, Your Majesty? Bryce's voice asked. I did. Hold them there in that room while we take care of the bombs. I'll get back to you. Dakota out, Prince Dakota said, and then he terminated the link. He glanced at Misbehave a moment. I'm a guess blowing yourselves up wasn't the plan from the disgusted looks on your faces, he added as he walked closer to her. New paragraph. It was not, Misbehave said with a calmer tone as she more addressed him with the respect of a beloved monarch. She now immediately understood how powerful the superhuman prince was. and was now certain he could help them in a way they'd longed for. They'd longed for several millennia. She could see he displayed no fear whatsoever on his face and would do what he could to help them. She had been told the Mugs wanted to kill all the OZ, but if that were true, they'd have already done it with their advanced weaponry instead of simply restraining them. She couldn't wait to see what came next. New paragraph. Okay, we'll discuss this later. For now, I'm going to have you join the others in the antechamber to discuss the proposition I have for you. I think you'll be pleased, Prince Dakota said with a half grin. Misbehave could tell he was obviously excited about what he wanted to tell them. New paragraph. Of course, Your Majesty. My people and I look forward to it. Okay, Kalis, Mr. Data, you're with me. We're going to head to the 5th floor and assist Malcolm and the others assigned to the bomb. Lursa, Beaver, Beverly, and the rest of you, make sure these OZ get to the antechamber, Prince Dakota ordered as he glanced at all of them. New paragraph. Yes, Your Majesty. Lursa, Beaver, Beverly, and the remaining Mugs said in near unison as they stood up tall. Misbehave wondered what species Lursa and Kalis were. Their high forehead ridges were impressive, and they looked way more handsome for a species than any human. Prince Dakota nodded once at Mr. Data, who nodded back and then headed straight to a nearby wall. Misbehave and the other OZ wondered what on earth he was doing, and then they immediately realized when he pulled a small round device from the equipment harness on his belt, and it auto-attached to the stone wall after he held it there a moment. It was about 4 inches wide, resembled a mini discus, and looked advanced. The OZ gasped lightly with wide eyes as a wormhole door opened right in the wall. A darkened shield came up first to tone down the brightness of the forming wormhole. After the light went down, the shield dropped to reveal a bluish-white, glowing event horizon that resembled a sideways pool of water in the shape of a standard wide doorway. The OZ couldn't see what was on the other side of the event horizon, but the Mugs knew. Their batons allowed them to see what was on the other side, but anyone without one could not see for security purposes unless allowed to. The OZ were shocked as Prince Dakota, Kalis, and Mr. Data simply walked through the event horizon and disappeared. Mr. Data snatched the device off the wall as he went through the wormhole. The event horizon then briefly glowed brighter just before it winked out of existence, leaving a stone wall. The OZ had never seen advanced technology such as what they just witnessed. New paragraph. What species are you? Misbehave asked as she looked at Lursa. I am a Klingon, Lursa said as she stood tall as though she was proud of her species. How old are you? 15. Well, I can tell you are an impressive warrior, Misbehave said with a half grin. Thank you. And do you have a name? I'm certain it's not Misbehave. His Majesty calls all troublesome women and girls by that name, Lursa said with a half-toothy grin. Indeed. I am Katerina Dominic, Misbehave Katerina said with pride. New paragraph. It is a pleasure to meet you, Katerina. Now, we're going to open another ERB, which will take us directly to the antechamber, Lursa said as she glanced at Beverly, who wasted no time and swiftly pulled the same device from her belt harness that Mr. Data had done. Everyone, I'm going to take a quick break, then I'll continue. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. New paragraph. Fascinating, Katerina said as she glanced at Beaver, who was 12. And is your name really Beaver? She asked with a half grin. Oops. Everyone, I'm going to restart the paragraph. I screwed that up. Okay. It is a pleasure to meet you, Katerina. Now, we're going to open another ERB, which will take us directly to the antechamber, Lursa said as she glanced at Beverly, who wasted no time and swiftly pulled the same device from her belt harness that Mr. Data had done. Fascinating, Katerina said as she glanced at Beaver, who was 12. And is your name really Beaver? She asked with a half grin. No, it's Theodore. My nickname is Beaver. And that's a long story. My family and friends call me that. But I decided to make it my mug name, Beaver said nonchalantly as he shrugged. He was obviously cool with his name and job as a superpowered mug. Katerina was certain Prince Dakota saved Beaver's life at some point before the two boys met. She was itching to hear that story and was certain it would be good. She planned to ask Dakota about it later once they were in the antechamber. She was certain whatever they were about to be told would be fascinating. They watched as Beverly activated the wormhole and waited for it to stabilize. New paragraph. I'm guessing the ERB stands for Einstein-Rosen-Bridge, Katerina said. You'd be correct, Beaver said, as the ERB stabilized and showed a crystal clear view of the antechamber. They could see other OZs staring at them wide-eyed from the other side of the wormhole. They were clearly in shock at what they were seeing. Beaver, Lursa, and the other mugs directed Katerina and the others to walk through the ERB. The OZ's arms were restrained, but they could still walk. Beverly was the last to go through and grabbed the alien device off the wall as she walked through the ERB. After she was through, it winked out of existence, leaving an empty stone corridor. As soon as Katerina and the other OZ emerged from the QWD into the antechamber, they immediately noticed several long and ornate wooden tables had been set up on the antechamber floor. The tables looked bulky and heavy, so she wondered where they'd come from so fast. She guessed the mugs' access to advanced technology had something to do with it. The soldiers, previously restrained by the energy ropes, had begun calmly taking seats at the tables in chairs made of the same ornate wood. The chairs all had armrests, and black, soft faux leather covers. She noticed with interest that Lord Valerian was sitting calmly at one of the tables with his head down slightly while he avoided eye contact with the others. A few OZ made no secret of the fact that they were agitated with him, but she had a feeling Prince Dakota's proposition would make them smile again. She took a seat at one of the tables as Bryce spoke to them. New paragraph. Everyone, if I could have your attention, Prince Dakota will be here soon to talk to you. So, if you could take a seat, some of the soldiers will come around and give you an energy cocktail from an advanced syringe. It's powerful and will sustain you for a while, Bryce said as he looked around the large room at everyone. Scene change. Everyone, that is the end of part 2 of chapter 5. The next episode will be chapter 6, Bombs Are Us. Thank you and have a good night.